Happy hump day to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to the Wednesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. We've got lots to get through today, so before we continue with the video, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. This is a 500 millibar anomaly for the summer, meteorological summer so far, tweeted by our good friend Richard Trott, showing quite an interesting and very, very flat, about Atlantic-dominated type of summer that you'll ever see really in the UK and Ireland here. You notice here this very distinct trough extending from the northeast of Canada through southern and central Greenland, Iceland, and extending into the UK and Ireland here with a bit of a kind of west to northwesterly lean in the mean flow. And essentially this has delivered what is potentially going to be the coolest summer, so the first summer meteorological, so the 90-day period overall, the coolest since 2015. I could be wrong in saying that, but I'm pretty certain that this is this would be the first summer overall to be below average for the UK and Ireland, and that really is quite something. You have to go all the way back to 2015, the last time that has occurred. But interesting when you look at the latest sea surface temperature anomalies here, that it quite nicely reflects that upper level situation here. We've had quite a lot of cold waters here developing just to the south of Greenland here, extending all the way into the UK and Ireland here. We've got this strip of anomalous warmth here to the south. And generally speaking, certainly over the last few weeks, never mind the entire summer, we've had a lot of westerly flow. We've had quite a deep trough anchored just to the south of Iceland here. We've had quite a strong anomalous ridge over Iberia extending into the southern UK. So it's been very much a month cool and unsettled in the north, warmer, drier in the south here. And I know folks have been commenting about the lack of rainfall across the southern half of the British Isles here. And really even up here across the north, it hasn't been overly wet. I think there's quite, according to the Aidan McGivern of the Met Office yesterday, in his deep dive, he showed the rainfall anomaly for the month of August. I believe it was August, not meteorological summer overall, but it showed slightly, pretty much average rainfall for the month of August in the West Highlands. But generally speaking, it has been largely drier than average. That is likely to change over the next 24 to 48 hours. And the reason for that is we've had a lot of rain over the last 36 hours or so, and we're going to see a lot more rain over the upcoming 36 to 48 hours as well, helped by the fact that we've got the remnants of Ernesto containing more moisture than typical baroclinic areas of low pressure. That is going to drop a lot more rain than you would typically expect to see. And this is all very, very typical for the month of August, late August into September, even into October as well. Western Europe, always susceptible to recurving tropical cyclones affecting our part of the world. So Debbie helped deliver the hottest spell of the entire summer overall. Now Ernesto is helping reinforce somewhat of a more autumnal type of pattern across the western side of Europe here. I said that about a week ago back when I was in Brazil, that Ernesto was likely to deepen the trough over the west of Europe around this time frame, so mid to late this week, and that appears to be playing out very nicely indeed. You can see here the wake of Ernesto that became a Cat 2 hurricane to the south of Bermuda. You can actually see the upwelled water here within the Western Atlantic Basin associated with Ernesto. So looking at the 7-day change here, this is the change over the last 7 days, and you can see quite a lot of cooling, especially across the Western Atlantic associated with Ernesto. But you can see, generally speaking here, we've had quite a lot of upwelled water here due to a very strong jet stream crossing the North Atlantic. And I put out a tweet there just about 15 minutes ago suggesting that really this is the time of the year now where you expect to see growing cold over Greenland, and therefore we also see tropical systems, tropical entities, hurricanes moving north, so driving tropical heat northwards, meeting that increase in cold over Greenland, and therefore we see the jet increase in strength. And we're talking about 180, 185 mile per hour jet, almost flat, straight, running across the Atlantic basin and firing a series of low pressure systems towards the UK and Ireland here. So this is the 850 temperature profile here. So plenty of cold air, starting to build. Days are getting shorter, nights growing in intensity. We see the cold naturally start to build over Greenland during the latter half of August here. And obviously, this is the time of the year where the tropics become most active. So we start to see heat energy lifting north. So you naturally start to see the jet stream becoming stronger during this time of the year. This is the anomaly compared to average at 850. You can see quite significantly colder than average coming out of Greenland here. We've got significantly warmer than average coming out of the tropics, and you have that fight in between, and therefore, consequently, we get a strong jet stream. So, looking at the rainfall over the last, this is 72 hours here, and you can see literally no rain across the southeast. So we've got zeros in parts of East Anglia, whereas we've got not a huge amount, but we've got upwards of 30 to 40 millimetres of rain over the western side of Scotland here, parts of Western Ireland, Western Northern Ireland as well. 30 plus millimetres of rain fallen in the last 3 days or so. Even around the Glasgow area, we've had upwards of 34.8 millimetres fallen at Bishopton. Distinct contrast here, we've got Charterhall in the Borders only seeing around 3 mils, and then even down towards Bulmer on the Northumberland coast. I believe that's Northumberland, 0.8 millimetres of rain. So the distinct west to east contrast in terms of rainfall distribution, and then the further south you go, the less you see as well. It's all due to the fact that we've had low pressure systems, fronts moving frequently in from the west, affecting the northwest in particular of both Ireland and Northern Ireland, even parts of the south of the Republic of Ireland seeing very little in the way of rainfall, as you can see here. The upcoming 7 days is looking like this, or not upcoming 7 days, but the next several days, I should say. We can see here, if we look at the icon model, let's have a look at the icon today and see what the rainfall projections are looking like. So just bear with me a little second here, just to get the right chart, and we can have a look at the British Isles specifically. So between now and the end of tomorrow is looking like this here. A bit hard to see. I do apologise for that. I can't actually blow it up much more. You notice here parts of eastern England here as well as the south seeing very little in the way of rain between now and the end of tomorrow. The end of Friday is looking like this here. And again, the capture of heaviest rainfall up the western side of Ireland here, Northern Ireland, and the western side of northwest England, and up the western side of Scotland here as well. Even across Scotland, even across northern areas, it's very, very orographic in nature here. We've got a distinct rain barrier here over the Cairngorms, over the Highlands itself. Therefore, we've got this distinct 150 millimetres rain falling, captured on the west facing Atlantic exposed hills. Once you get over the top of them hills, you see very little in the way of rainfall. And that is a very, very notable aspect here. If we look specifically at Scotland, between now and the end of Saturday, there is a total of 101 millimetres fallen according to the icon model. But look at around Inverness, barely a few millimetres to speak about here. So I live just about 14 miles to the north of Inverness, and according to the icon model anyway, it's only indicating 2 or 3 millimetres of rain, which is quite interesting. Get yourself onto the west coast, you're talking 50 to 100 millimetres of rain. Let's have a look and see actually what the other models are showing here real quick. So let's have a look and see what the ARPEG model is indicating for the same time frame here. So it's indicating more in the way of rain totals, 146 millimetres of rain to be exact. Again, the distinct rain shadow effect here between the windward side versus the lee side of the mountains here. So obviously Ernesto reinforcing that rainfall, containing more moisture because of its tropical source. It holds on to that despite transitioning from warm to cold core, driven by baroclinicity rather than heat energy from the ocean. It still contains its moisture, and therefore we will see a significant rain amount across the west coast here. We're likely to see flooding and disruption due to rain. Looking at the ECMWF and see what it is indicating here between now and the end of Saturday here, and it's indicating 112 millimeters of rain. So you can see here, generally speaking, 100 millimeters I think is a safe bet, but some models are indicating closer to 150 millimeters of rain falling between now and the end of Saturday. So looking at the latest surface chart of the Met Office model here, you can see quite a complex situation. The current low, the main low pressure system itself, is anchored just to the south of Iceland here. There's the remnants of Ernesto kind of becoming a little bit absorbed by this frontal system associated with that 971 millibar low. Quite a deep feature actually. But again, this time of the year, strengthening jet stream, you get enhanced deepening of low pressure at this time of the year due to that large gradient in terms of temperature. But looking at the model here as we move towards 100 UTC Thursday morning, the remnants of Ernesto approaching the west coast of Scotland here. Lots of moisture running along this boundary here, so we're connecting the tropics with the UK here, and we will see the rain continuing to pile in. I think even, to be honest with you, some of these models are slightly underdoing these rain totals. Wouldn't be surprised if we do see an excess of 150 millimeters in some of those west coast exposed sites. Eventually, the system moves through here. We've got quite a long frontal system associated. Ernesto, the remains of Ernesto, becomes absorbed with that area of low pressure just to the south of Iceland here. But trailing frontal system extends all the way back through the Azores and out into the central subtropical Atlantic here. This is the next feature running through here. So with a very active jet, very zonal jet, we're going to continue to see the storm train roll on here. And we've got a deep feature here actually running in, containing a lot of moisture also. Maybe not as much rain as associated with the remnants of Ernesto, but nonetheless, this is another rainmaker moving into the British Isles here. Therefore, what I said before about the drier than average August, well, we're starting to build the rainfall amounts, especially the further north you go. Again, further south here over the UK, we're not seeing a lot in the way of rainfall, I'm afraid, if you're looking for that. That system then barrels through, may bring some fairly gusty winds, by the way, associated with that as well. And then look at that there. This trailing frontal system is associated with this low. That secondary feature moving through during the course of Friday extends all the way back to Newfoundland, which is quite interesting actually. So, and then we're left in a kind of legacy of northwesterly winds, feeling cool in that northwesterly winds. Remember, we've got that cold air over Greenland sinking south. Once the remnants of Ernesto, the feature that follows that, moves through, then it's going to feel distinctly cool in that west and northwesterly flow. We're drawing our air in from Greenland, albeit ocean modified, of course. Looking at the latest imagery here of the satellite, you can see the main parent low, that deep low just to the south of Iceland, very distinct, lovely looking on visible satellite. They're embedded just in this kink in the cloud arc. You can see here, this would be the remnants of Ernesto here, so it's kind of just lots of high clouds here, representative of a lot of moisture contained within this. It's drawing that moisture all the way from the subtropics right the way into the British Isles, and eventually that will move through, followed by the next system. That next system's well out into the Atlantic at the moment here. Looking at the latest radar of Weather Online, and you can see all that moisture piling into the northwest of England, so Cumbria, Lancashire, even parts of that. But notice the difference here. We've literally got no rain, very close to heavy rain. So this, it's very, very orographic in nature here. So that warm moisture running up the hills cools, condenses, and enhances the rainfall on the windward side of any kind of topography, high ground. To the east of that, literally nothing to speak about here. Even at Vogan Weather HQ, heavy rain, perhaps 25-30 miles to the west of here, literally nothing. And I don't think I've recorded any rain today whatsoever. And it'll be interesting to see over the next few days how much rain actually falls here at the house. We're kind of in that rain shadow of the West Highlands in this particular location. So there you go. So we'll have a look and see what else we can speak about here real quick. Sorry, just bear with me a second here, just to find where I'm at. So we've talked about the sea surface temperatures. We've talked about the strength. I'll get there. Strength of the jet. Let's have a look at thunderstorm activity here. This is quite interesting. There's a lot of thunderstorm activity. Some over just to the east of Hamburg, on the north coast of Germany. If you notice here, nothing over the UK and Ireland. We've got some to speak about down across Iberia, even over the Atlas Mountains of Morocco, if you notice here. But we've got this cluster here, you notice, extending from the western side of the Baltics into parts of what would that be, Belarus, Lithuania, and then down into southeastern Poland, Slovakia, Slovenia, into the Balkan region here as well. You notice here the temperature contrast here. We do have a frontal system moving through with somewhat fresher air moving in, extending all the way from the Atlantic here across the UK and Ireland, northern portions of France, Low Countries, Germany, Poland, and then there's the very hot air contained to the south and east here. So the Balkans up into Ukraine, we've got some very hot conditions to speak about here. Bearing in mind that we're well into the evening hours here, and this is quite hot air for the time of the day. But notice here that we've got fresher air behind this boundary, and if we'll look back at the pressure chart of the Met Office model here, you can see that frontal boundary and its progression eastwards here. So if we play through the loop, there's that frontal system. Sorry, play it back further. I just want to kind of show you where these thunderstorms are erupting. So this is that frontal boundary here, moving eastwards, that brought the heavy rain during the course of last night to the UK, now barreling its way eastwards, and by the time we reached the latter half of this afternoon, that frontal system is now pushing into the eastern side of Europe. So that cold front dragging in fresher Atlantic air is the trigger. It's moving into that hot, humid air over the eastern side of the continent and allowing this thunderstorm line to blow up over the eastern side of the continent, as you can see here. So let me just see if there's anything else that I can show you. These are the current temperatures, so fresh afternoon for pretty much all. So we've only got 14 at Loch Liscarnock here, not so bad here at Dalcross, Inverness at 18, both at Inverness and Kinloss at 17.8. Mid-teens generally, mid to upper teens across Ireland and Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland here, into the northwest. And obviously we're increasing our winds in from the west-southwest direction here as the remnants of Ernesto moves in, and we're clinging on to some 20s across the southeast corner of England, as you can see here. Finally, looking at the wind speeds here, so these are the current wind speeds in kilometres per hour. Up over the high ground, Bielek Naba, very exposed to the west coast here. We're talking about wind speeds in excess of 130 kilometres per hour. We've got 145 kilometres per hour over Annachmore, near just to the north of Fort William here. And we've got 121 kilometres per hour over Cairngorm. We're going to increase the winds from up through the Irish Sea, northwestern England, parts of western Ireland as well, western Scotland. Through the course of tonight, it's going to turn increasingly windy and also wet, with that distinct east to west contrast in the rainfall. Looking at the MJO, now remember I said to you about the potential of something a little bit warmer towards the end of the month. Now the MJO is sitting in phase 2 and 3 at the moment here, and there was some model suggestion that it goes into phases 4 and 5, and that certainly would suggest something warmer for Western Europe as we move basically towards the final days of August into the first few days of September. But the latest GFS doesn't seem to push it through phases 4 and 5. It kind of stays in phases 2 and 3 and then heads into the null phase. We'll keep an eye on that going forward. But we'll wait and see what happens with regards to the end of the month pattern. Wanted to also show you this, by the way. The Arctic oscillation has been predominantly positive during the course of this summer. You go back all the way to the beginning of June. There has been a few spells where it was negative, especially towards the first half of June. Obviously, we had a very, very cool June overall, but particularly so up until around the 20th of the month. The Arctic Oscillation actually stayed negative at that time, but since then, it's been either close to neutral, if not positive, the Arctic Oscillation, which is quite interesting. Looking at the NAO, similar idea. We had a negative during the first half of June, hence the cool pattern, northwesterly winds, high pressure to the west of the British Isles. Then we've seen generally positive right the way through the majority of the rest of June, July, and much of August here. It looks as if it's taken a little bit of a nosedive, not nosedive, but a dip towards slight negative as we move towards the early portions of September here. Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, there may be indications that it's going to go a little bit negative going forward. We'll keep an eye on that with regards to the pattern later down the road. I think I've spoken long enough, so like, share, and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed today's content. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought, and I'll hopefully be back tomorrow with more. Stay tuned. Bye for now.